Breaking news! A strong 7.8 magnitude earthquake shook large regions of Turkey and Syria early Monday, destroying hundreds of structures and killing over 2,300 people. Hundreds of people are still feared to be buried beneath rubble, and the death toll is anticipated to grow as rescue crews comb heaps of wreckage in cities and towns across the region. Residents jarred awake by the pre-dawn tremor ran outside on a freezing, wet, and snowy night on both sides of the border. Buildings were flattened to heaps of squished floors, and huge aftershocks or additional quakes, including one almost as powerful as the original, rattled the region. Rescue crews and ordinary civilians from different cities and towns combed through the metal and concrete mess left behind by the earthquake in search of survivors. While it has been reported that a hospital in Turkey has collapsed, while patients, including newborns, have been safely evacuated from Syrian facilities. Furthermore, a resident whose home is in the Turkish city of Adana has reported that 3 buildings near his home have been completely destroyed and reduced to rubble. When the resident went to inspect the damage, he said he heard a survivor trapped beneath the wreckage say, "I don't have the strength anymore," as rescue crews did their best to rescue him. During this time, the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan in an interview explained that because the debris removal efforts are continuing in many buildings in the earthquake zone, we do not know how high the number of dead and injured will rise, and says that hopefully, we will leave these disastrous days behind us in unity and solidarity as a country and a nation. The earthquake, located in Turkey's southeastern region of Kahramanmaraş, was felt all the way in Cairo. It brought Damascene citizens running into the streets and shocked Beirut residents awake from their sleep. It also struck an area that had been shaped on both sides of the border due to Syria's civil conflict for more than a decade. On the Syrian side, the area impacted is divided between government-held territory and the country's final opposition-held enclave, which is encircled by government forces supported by Russia. Meanwhile, Turkey is host to millions of migrants fleeing the fighting. There are approximately 4 million people displaced from other parts of Syria by the fighting in the opposition-held regions. Many of them live in destroyed structures from previous bombardments. The opposition emergency group known as the White Helmets released a statement stating that hundreds of families were still trapped under the rubble and destruction left behind by the earthquake. According to rescue workers, already full health facilities and hospitals were quickly filled with injured patients. A maternity hospital, among other hospitals, had to be evaluated. The quake on Monday was measured at a 7.8 magnitude by the U.S. Geological Survey. A 7.5 magnitude earthquake a few hours later struck over 100 kilometers away from the original location. Although its effects were not immediately apparent, an official from Turkey's disaster management agency reported that it was a new earthquake and not an aftershock. Hundreds of aftershocks are anticipated following the 2 earthquakes. More than 330 kilometers to the northeast, from Syria's Aleppo and Hama to Turkey's Diyarbakir, thousands of buildings are said to have collapsed. According to Turkey's Vice President, Fuat Oktay, casualties were not immediately known after a hospital collapsed in the Mediterranean coastal city of Iskenderun. Turkey's television stations aired live coverage of rescue efforts in the worst-hit provinces. 2 children were rescued from the rubble in the city of Kahramanmaraş alive by rescue workers. One of the children could be seen lying on a stretcher on the snowy ground. Dozens of nations, in addition to NATO and the European Union, sent aid in the form of search and rescue teams, medical supplies, and money. According to Dr. Stephen Godby, an expert in natural hazards at Nottingham Trent University, severe temperatures and the difficulty of working in areas beset by civil war will only make rescue efforts more difficult. The damage that is evident from photographs of the affected areas is typically associated with a significant high death toll. Traffic jams caused by people trying to leave the quake-ravaged areas in Turkey hampered the efforts of emergency response teams to reach the affected areas. Residents were urged not to travel on the roads by authorities. People who were unable to return to their damaged homes were given shelter by opening mosques throughout the region in temperatures that were close to freezing. While excavators dug through the rubble below, hundreds of civilians and rescue workers formed lines across a mountain of wreckage to search for trapped survivors. They passed down pieces of broken concrete, household items, and other debris. Osama Abdulhamid, a resident affected by the earthquake, in an interview explained how most of his neighbors have already passed away in a hospital in Idlib's Darkish. He explained that when the earthquake struck, he, his wife, and their 3 children ran to the exit of their shared 4-story building when it collapsed suddenly. But miraculously, a door fell above them and shielded them from the impact of the collapsing building. While, in the small town of Azmarin, in the mountains near the Turkish border, civilians brought bodies of dead children wrapped in blankets to a hospital. According to the USGS, the earthquake was 18 kilometers deep. According to the president of Turkey's disaster management agency, there were approximately 8,500 injuries and 1,500 deaths in 10 provinces. The health ministry reports that over 1,280 people were injured and over 430 people died in government-held areas of Syria. According to operating groups in the rebel-held northwest of the country, at least 380 people have died and many hundreds have been injured. However, rescue operations are still underway, so death tolls and casualties are expected to rise significantly. During this time, the people of Turkey and Syria need our help. If you can't help financially, please make a prayer for all that have been affected by the earthquake and pray that all the rescue operations are successful and no further calamities fall on those affected.